Poor Florist girl mocked the millionaire's deal, until he said, "You're my fake wife now." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The story began on a spring morning inside the grand ballroom of the Hale Group Hotel, where crystal chandeliers shimmered like frozen stars. The room smelled of roses and ambition. Maya Tran stood among dozens of business elites, clutching a clipboard stained with pollen and ribbon glue. She was not supposed to be here as a guest. She was just the florist hired to decorate the event, one whose paycheck barely covered her rent. Yet when she overheard the arrogant speech of Adrian Hale, the young billionaire CEO whose name everyone whispered, something inside her burned. Adrian was tall, composed, his charcoal suit pressed sharp enough to slice glass. He spoke with the calm certainty of a man who had never been told no. "Progress requires sacrifice," he declared, his tone echoing across the marble hall. "Our redevelopment plan will transform this old district into a new cultural hub." Maya tightened her grip on the clipboard. Her little flower shop was in that old district. Her mother's shop, their family's only legacy. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Excuse me," she called, her voice trembling but loud enough to hush the room. "You call it progress, but what you are doing is erasing people's lives. My shop is not just dirt on your blueprint. It is home." A murmur rippled through the audience. Cameras turned. Adrian's steel-gray eyes locked on hers, unreadable. For a second, silence fell so heavy, it felt like snow. Then he spoke, slowly, as if measuring every word. "You must be the florist," he said, walking closer. "The one who refused to use imported roses because you said they lack a soul." Maya's heart pounded. "Yes, because beauty should have meaning, not just a price tag." A faint smile touched his lips, half amusement, half challenge. "So tell me, Miss Tran, if you dislike my deal so much, perhaps you would prefer another kind of contract." The audience exchanged confused glances. Maya frowned. "What kind of contract?" Adrian stopped right in front of her. His voice dropped low enough for only her to hear, but the microphones caught every syllable. "A marriage contract," he said. "Be my wife." "My fake wife." Gasps erupted. Maya froze, certain she had misheard. "What?" Adrian straightened his tie, expression unbothered. "You wanted to save your flower shop, did you not? I have a board of directors who believe I need to settle down to secure the family trust. You need protection for your shop. I need a partner who is not after my money. Marry me for 90 days. No feelings, no lies, just business." The words hit her like thunder. Cameras flashed. Her face burned. "That is insane," she whispered. "You do not even know me." Adrian's gaze softened, just slightly. "Maybe not, but I know sincerity when I see it. You stood up to me when no one else dared. That makes you more real than anyone in this room." The crowd buzzed again, reporters whispering, phones recording. Maya's mind spun. Her entire life, her debts, her mother's legacy, her collapsing shop collided with this surreal offer. Adrian extended his hand, calm and steady, as if proposing in front of the world were just another business move. "So," he said, voice smooth as silk, "what do you say, Miss Tran? Shall we make a different kind of deal?" The room held its breath. And that was the moment when a broke florist found herself standing at the edge of a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Part 2. The echo of Adrian's proposal still lingered in Maya's ears long after the ballroom emptied. The next morning, she sat behind the counter of her tiny flower shop, the smell of wilted lilies and yesterday's rain filling the air. The closed sign hung crooked on the glass door because she could not afford to replace the hinge. Bills cluttered the counter like a cruel reminder that beauty alone could not pay rent. She replayed the scene from the gala again and again, the flash of cameras, the murmurs, his steady voice offering a marriage contract as if it were another business deal. "Be my wife, my fake wife." She had called him insane. But now, reality felt even more unreasonable. Her landlord had already given notice to vacate in 2 weeks. The redevelopment would bulldoze everything her mother had built. Maya pressed a hand to the photo frame beside the cash register, a picture of her mother holding a bouquet of wild lavender. "I will not let them destroy this," she whispered. The bell over the door jingled softly. Adrian Hale stood in the doorway, the morning light cutting across his tailored coat. He looked entirely out of place among the cracked tiles and cheap vases. "You came to gloat?" Maya asked, her voice sharp. "To remind me what poverty smells like?" "No," he replied evenly, stepping closer. "I came to make the offer again, without the audience this time." She folded her arms. "I told you, it is insane." Adrian studied her face, his tone calm but unyielding. "Then let me explain why. My board insists I marry before the next quarter to finalize the trust transfer my mother left. They want proof of stability. I have no time, and I refuse to marry one of their suggestions. You stood up to me yesterday when everyone else clapped. That makes you inconveniently honest and useful." Maya laughed without humor. "You want to use me to look human. I want to give you something in return," Adrian said, pulling a folder from his briefcase. Inside were legal papers stamped and sealed. "If you agree, the Hale Group will renew your shop's lease for a full year. You will also receive funding for the community flower market your mother once planned." Her breath caught. "How do you know about that?" "I read your interview from 3 years ago," he said simply. "You said flowers remind people to slow down and care. I thought that was different." His voice softened just slightly at the end, enough to make her look up. For a fleeting second, she saw not the ruthless businessman, but a man carrying some quiet loneliness behind his eyes. She hesitated, staring at the papers. "There must be conditions," she said finally. "Of course." He slid a single page toward her. 3 rules. 1. You attend 5 public events with me as my wife. 2. You do not interfere with my personal affairs. And 3. We keep this contract strictly confidential. Maya's fingers hovered over the page. "And what happens after 90 days? We dissolve the arrangement. You keep the shop. I keep my company. Everyone wins." She shook her head, exhaling hard. "This is ridiculous. People do not marry for convenience." Adrian's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "People marry for far worse reasons, Miss Tran." His words lingered between them. She looked down again at the folder, the renewal lease, the grant, the promise of saving her mother's dream. Her chest tightened. Every logical part of her screamed to say no, but the quiet, desperate part whispered that this might be the only chance to protect what she loved. She picked up the pen he had left on the counter. It was heavy, engraved with his initials, the same pen he had used to sign deals worth millions. The ink touched paper before she realized what she was doing. Her hand trembled as she wrote her name, Maya Tran. Adrian took the document, folded it neatly, and slipped it back into his briefcase. "Welcome to the deal, Mrs. Hale." The sound of the words made her spine stiffen. "Do not call me that," she said quickly. "It is just paperwork. For now," he said with a faint smile that vanished almost as soon as it appeared. He glanced around the shop, his gaze landing on the old watering can on the shelf. The handle was cracked, the paint chipped. "Your mother's?" he asked. She nodded silently. "Keep it close," Adrian murmured. "It will remind you why you agreed." And then he left, leaving the faint trace of expensive cologne and a silence that felt like the beginning of something neither of them could name. Maya stood there, staring at the signed paper in her hand, realizing that she had just traded her freedom for a chance to save her world and maybe, unknowingly, had just stepped into his. Part 3. The morning after signing the contract, Maya found herself standing in the lobby of Hale Tower, clutching a folder of identification documents and trying to breathe normally. The marble floors gleamed like water, and her reflection stared back at her, a florist in second-hand shoes stepping into a billionaire's world. A woman in a tailored suit greeted her briskly. "Good morning, Mrs. Hale. I am Clara, Mr. Hale's executive assistant. We will go over the terms and arrangements today." The words Mrs. Hale felt foreign, like a costume she was not ready to wear. Maya nodded stiffly and followed her into the private elevator. Inside the top-floor penthouse, Adrian was standing by a glass wall that overlooked the city skyline. His back was straight, his expression unreadable as always. He turned as the elevator doors opened. "You are on time," he said simply. "I try to be professional," Maya replied. He handed her a stack of neatly printed schedules. "These are the 5 events we must attend together. A charity gala, a corporate dinner, a product launch, the annual board summit, and finally the foundation's anniversary gala." She glanced at the list, feeling her stomach twist. 5 events, 5 chances to humiliate myself. "Or 5 chances to prove you belong," Adrian said quietly. Clara handed Maya another envelope. This includes your new wardrobe, media guidelines, and security protocol. You will also need to move into the Hale residence by Friday. The press cannot know you live separately. Move in? Maya repeated. This was not part of the plan. It is in the confidentiality clause, Adrian said. You signed it. She stared at him, half angry, half stunned. I did not sign up to be trapped. You signed up to save your shop? He countered calmly. This is how we make it believable. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then Maya exhaled sharply. Fine, but do not expect me to play the doting wife. Adrian's lips curved faintly. Good, I do not like liars. Later that week, Maya arrived at his penthouse with 2 suitcases and a heart full of unease. The residence was nothing like she had imagined. It was elegant but cold walls of glass, black leather furniture, and the faint hum of city life far below. No flowers, no warmth, no sign of anyone truly living there. Clara showed her to the guest room, which looked more like a high-end hotel suite than a home. Dinner is at 7, she said politely before leaving. Maya unpacked slowly, setting the old watering can on the windowsill. The chipped paint looked out of place among the polished silver and marble, but it grounded her. It was the last piece of her real world. That evening, she entered the dining room where Adrian sat already, scrolling through documents on his tablet. The long table stretched between them like a negotiation line. You did not have to cook, she said, noticing the untouched plates. I did not, he replied. My chef prepared everything. She took a seat, feeling awkward under the weight of silence. Do you always eat alone like this? She asked. Adrian glanced up, expression blank. Most of the time. It is easier. Easier than what? Easier than pretending to connect, he said. The honesty in his tone surprised her. For a brief second, she saw past the perfect suit and the sharp lines of control. There was exhaustion in his eyes, something quiet and human. Maybe that is why you wanted this deal, she said softly. To pretend you are not alone. Adrian's gaze met hers, cool but thoughtful. You talk too much, he said finally. But there was no edge in his voice. Maya smiled faintly. And you listen too little. The corner of his mouth lifted almost imperceptibly before he looked away. The next morning, Clara arrived with a stylist and a team carrying boxes of designer dresses and heels. Maya stood frozen as they measured and fitted her for the upcoming events. When she caught her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Gone was the florist with dirt under her nails. In her place stood a woman who looked like she belonged in the glossy pages of a magazine, but beneath the silk and diamonds, her hands still smelled faintly of lavender and soil. That evening, Adrian knocked on her door. Your first appearance is tomorrow, he said, at the Carter Foundation Charity Gala. The media will be watching closely. Maya nodded, her stomach tight. And what exactly am I supposed to do? Stand beside me, he said. Smile when needed. Speak only when you mean it. That last part might be difficult, she muttered. Adrian paused, a small spark of amusement in his eyes. Do not worry, Miss Tran. You will do fine. Then he added more quietly, You always do. After he left, Maya stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere below were the streets she used to walk, the shop she was trying to save, the life that had felt small but real. Now, she was stepping into a world of masks, cameras, and half-truths. She touched the watering can on the sill and whispered, For you, Mom, I will survive this deal. And outside, the city glowed like a promise she was not sure she could trust. Part 4. The next evening arrived like a storm of lights and whispers. The Carter Foundation Charity Gala filled the grand ballroom of the Halcyon Hotel, a place that smelled of perfume, champagne, and hidden judgment. Maya stood beside Adrian, her hand resting lightly on his arm, the cameras flashing like lightning. Every lens wanted to capture the mysterious new Mrs. Hale. The gown Clara had chosen shimmered in soft silver, but Maya still felt like a guest in someone else's body. Her pulse beat too fast, and she wished she could disappear into a bouquet of flowers. Adrian leaned closer without looking at her. Relax, he murmured. If you keep staring at the exit, people will think you are running away. Maybe I am, she whispered back. Too late now, he said under his breath. The master of ceremonies began the introductions, his voice booming through the speakers. When Adrian's name was called, applause filled the room. He stepped forward, confident and composed, every inch the powerful CEO the world adored. Maya followed half a step behind, keeping her smile small but steady. As they took their seats at the front table, a woman in a red dress approached with a dazzling smile. "Adrian, I almost did not recognize you," she purred. "And who is this lovely woman?" "My wife," Adrian said evenly. The woman's smile froze. "Wife? You got married and did not tell anyone?" "It was a quiet ceremony," he replied. Maya nodded politely, though she could feel the weight of the woman's stare like needles. "How unexpected," the woman said before gliding away. Maya exhaled. "You could have warned me about your fan club," she muttered. "That was Evelyn Rhodes," Adrian said, his tone flat. "Chief Financial Officer. And my cousin." Maya blinked. "Cousin? Do not worry. She dislikes everyone equally." Maya was not sure if that was a joke, but the flicker of humor in his eyes softened the moment. The night continued with speeches and handshakes. When it was Adrian's turn to address the crowd, Maya watched him closely. His voice was smooth, his posture perfect, but there was something detached beneath the polish, as if every word was part of a script he had long grown tired of performing. Then, when he mentioned the community outreach program, Maya caught his pause. His eyes brushed over her for half a second, as though remembering her fiery words at the previous gala. "Real progress," he said slowly, "comes from listening to those we often overlook." It was a small sentence, almost casual, but Maya felt it like a spark in her chest. After the speech, as they mingled among donors, a man in a navy suit approached them, drink in hand. "Beautiful speech, Hale. Though I must say, your choice of wife surprised everyone. A florist from the old district? Quite the charitable gesture." The condescension in his voice made Maya's face flush. Adrian's expression stayed calm, but his voice turned cold. "Careful, Raymond. You are confusing kindness with charity again." The man chuckled awkwardly and stepped away. Maya looked at Adrian in surprise. "You did not have to defend me." "I did not," he said. "I defended myself. I do not tolerate ignorance in my circle." She smiled slightly. "Well, thank you anyway." The evening wound down. As the crowd dispersed, Adrian escorted her to the waiting car. The air outside was cooler, scented faintly with rain. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said, breaking the silence. "Except for stepping on my foot during the waltz." She laughed, genuine this time. "Maybe if you had not spun me like a professional dancer, I would have survived." "Noted," he said with a faint smirk. They rode the elevator in silence when they returned to the penthouse. Maya kicked off her heels with relief and leaned against the wall. "Your world is exhausting," she murmured. "It is not mine," Adrian said quietly, loosening his tie. "It is a performance I inherited." She glanced at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. "And what about when the curtain falls?" He looked out at the city skyline. "Then there is silence, just like before." Something in his tone made her chest ache. For a long moment, neither spoke. The distance between them felt fragile, like glass. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "You should let someone put flowers here," she said softly. "They make the air breathe again." Adrian turned slightly, his expression unreadable. "Then bring some," he said. "You know where to find the light." When he walked away, Maya stood alone in the dim glow of the penthouse, barefoot, holding her heels, and thinking that maybe, just maybe, beneath all the marble and pride, there was something inside this man that could still bloom. Part 5. Over the next few weeks, Maya's life became a series of public performances and private silences. She attended meetings, ribbon cuttings, and charity events where every smile felt rehearsed. Yet slowly, between the flashes of cameras and whispered questions, she began to notice pieces of Adrian that did not fit the billionaire image the world adored. He never stayed at parties longer than necessary. He never drank. And when the music grew too loud, his jaw would tighten as though he were fighting an invisible pressure. One afternoon, after another exhausting luncheon, Maya found him in the rooftop greenhouse that had been locked since she moved in. He stood by a row of dead plants, sleeves rolled up, sunlight catching the faint scar on his wrist. "I did not know you had a greenhouse," she said quietly. "I did not," he replied. "It was my mother's project before she passed. She believed the city needed green spaces. I closed it after the funeral." His voice was calm, but the weight behind it pressed through every word. Maya stepped closer, brushing her fingers over a wilted leaf. She was right. The world forgets how to breathe without something alive in it. He looked at her then, and for once, the usual distance in his gaze seemed to fade. "You remind me of her sometimes," he said softly. "She built everything from nothing, just like you." The compliment made her heart stumble, But before she could answer, Adrian's phone buzzed. His expression hardened as he glanced at the screen. Evelyn wants an emergency board meeting. She has been pushing for an audit of the foundation. She thinks this marriage is a liability. What does she have against me? Maya asked. You challenge her control, he said simply. And she does not like losing power. That evening, Adrian's penthouse filled with murmurs and the click of expensive shoes as executives gathered for a private dinner. Maya sat beside Adrian at the long table, trying to remain invisible while Evelyn spoke with the authority of someone who had always believed she belonged. Adrian, the board is concerned, she said, her voice sweet but sharp. Your sudden marriage, the press attention, the charity projects in the old district, they all seem impulsive. Adrian leaned back, his tone steady. Impulsive decisions built this company, Evelyn. The old district project will improve our public image. Public image? Evelyn smiled thinly. Or your florist's image? The room went silent. Maya's chest tightened. Adrian's eyes flicked toward her, calm but cold. Careful, Evelyn. You are speaking to my wife. Evelyn's smirk widened. A wife who conveniently saves his company? How poetic. Maya wanted to speak, but Adrian's hand brushed hers under the table, a silent warning. After the meeting ended, she confronted him in the hallway. You should have let me defend myself, she said. You did not need to. Yes, I did. I am not porcelain, Adrian. I do not need protection. His voice lowered. It was not protection. It was strategy. You will learn that silence can be louder than words. And what has that silence cost you? She asked. His eyes met hers, unguarded for the first time. Everything. The word hung between them like smoke. Later that night, unable to sleep, Maya wandered back to the rooftop greenhouse. She found a single surviving vine clinging stubbornly to the cracked planter. She touched it gently, then whispered to the empty room, You are not done yet. Over the next few days, she returned every morning, pruning, watering, coaxing life back into the forgotten space. Slowly, color began to return soft greens, the faint scent of rosemary. One evening, Adrian found her there, dirt on her hands and hair undone. You brought it back, he said quietly. It just needed someone to care again, she replied. He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You have a habit of doing that. Doing what? Making dead things live. Maya looked at him, unsure how to respond. For a long moment they stood in silence, the city lights flickering beyond the glass. Then Adrian said softly, The board summit is in 3 days. It will be your biggest appearance yet. I will need you there. You mean you need your contract wife? She said with a teasing smile. His gaze lingered on her, warm and conflicted. Maybe I need more than that. He turned before she could answer, leaving her heart unsteady and her thoughts tangled with a truth she did not want to admit. The man she was supposed to pretend to love was starting to feel dangerously real. Part 6. The day of the board summit arrived with the heavy rhythm of rain against glass. The Hale Group headquarters buzzed with nervous energy as investors, media, and executives filled the towering atrium. Maya stood beside Adrian in the private lounge, her palms damp despite the calm mask she tried to wear. The silver dress Clara had chosen shimmered under the lights, elegant but suffocating. You will be fine, Adrian said quietly, straightening his cufflinks. Just stand with me, and remember, we are a team. She nodded, though her chest felt tight. I know. I just wish pretending to be your wife did not feel so real sometimes. Adrian froze for a moment, his gaze flickering to her face. Before he could reply, Clara entered. They are ready for you. As they stepped into the conference hall, a sea of flashes greeted them. Maya's heart pounded, but she kept her chin high. Cameras clicked, microphones hissed, and the massive Hale logo glowed behind them. Adrian began his presentation, voice smooth and commanding. He spoke of innovation, sustainability, and the company's vision for a more human future. When he turned to introduce his wife, the audience shifted in curiosity. Maya took a deep breath and stepped forward. Good afternoon, she began, her voice steady though her hands trembled. My name is Maya Hale. I may not understand stocks or mergers, but I understand people. Flowers taught me that beauty comes from care, not control. A business, like a garden, grows best when every root matters. The room fell silent. Even Evelyn, seated in the front row, looked momentarily stunned. Adrian's expression softened, pride glinting in his eyes. When the applause came, it was hesitant at first, then full. Maya exhaled, realizing she had just passed her first true test. Later that evening, As the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Adrian found her standing by the window overlooking the city. "You stole my spotlight," he said, his tone teasing but warm. "I was not trying to," she said. "I just spoke what I believed. That is exactly why it worked." For a moment, silence filled the space between them, fragile and magnetic. Then Maya asked softly, "Why does someone like you, someone with everything, still look like he is carrying the weight of the world?" Adrian looked out at the rain. "Because I learned too young that success is never enough. My parents built an empire but forgot to live in it. My mother's heart gave out before she saw what she dreamed for this city. My father turned her loss into numbers and headlines. I promised I would not become like him, but every day I feel the same emptiness creeping in." His confession hit her deeper than she expected. "You are not him," she said gently. "You care. You just hide it well." He turned toward her, eyes unreadable. "And you see too much." "Someone has to," she replied softly. For a brief second, his hand brushed hers. It was unintentional, perhaps, but neither of them moved away. The air between them changed, no longer business, not yet love, but something dangerous in between. The next few days blurred into quiet companionship. They worked together in the rooftop greenhouse, reviving new rows of lavender and rosemary. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they did not. But even in silence, there was a rhythm forming like two hearts adjusting to the same beat. One night, Adrian brought her a cup of tea. "You forgot this downstairs," he said. "I made it the way you like." She smiled in surprise. "You remembered. You talk about lavender tea every morning. Hard not to." She laughed softly. "You are learning. I have a good teacher," he said, watching her over the rim of his cup. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to pause. Maya looked away quickly, her cheeks warm. "We should sleep. Tomorrow is the foundation gala." Adrian nodded but did not move. "Maya," he said quietly, her name sounding softer than ever before. She turned. "Yes? Thank you," he said simply, "for making this house feel less empty." Her throat tightened. "You are welcome, Adrian." That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when the line between duty and feeling had started to blur. She told herself it was just gratitude, maybe admiration, but deep down, she knew better. What had started as a contract was becoming something real, and that truth both terrified and thrilled her. As the rain eased and dawn crept over the city, one thought lingered in her mind: she was no longer just saving her flower shop, she was saving him too. Part 7. The night of the foundation gala arrived with the glow of chandeliers and the hum of expensive conversations. Maya stood before the mirror, adjusting the sapphire necklace Adrian had sent to match her midnight gown. She looked like she belonged in his world now, but her heart still beat like an imposter's. Downstairs, Adrian waited in his tuxedo, composed as ever. When he saw her, something unspoken flickered in his eyes. "You look," he began, then stopped, clearing his throat. "You look ready." She smiled faintly. "That is one way to avoid saying beautiful. If I say it, people might start believing it," he said, offering his arm. Together they entered the grand ballroom, the applause rising as cameras flashed. The evening seemed perfect until Evelyn appeared. Dressed in crimson silk and carrying the sharp smile of someone who already knew she would win, she approached with a glass of champagne. "Congratulations, cousin," she said sweetly. "Quite the transformation for our little florist." Maya kept her voice steady. "Thank you. Flowers teach patience, even in hostile soil." Evelyn's eyes glinted. "How poetic. But I wonder, does your husband know the price of your patience?" She held up a folder, thin but deadly. "A background check, Maya. Or should I say, Miss Tran? It seems your shop was not the only thing in debt. Credit cards, unpaid rent, even a loan you never disclosed. The press would find this quite dramatic." Maya's breath caught. "You went through my records?" "I protect the company," Evelyn said coolly. "And Adrian deserves the truth." Adrian's face turned hard. "That is enough, Evelyn. You really think marrying a woman drowning in debt will save your reputation?" She shot back. "The board will destroy you when they see this." "Then they can destroy me," he said. The room fell silent. He took Maya's hand and faced the crowd that had begun to watch. "This woman is my wife. I do not care where she came from. What matters is who she is now." His voice was steady, but Maya saw the storm behind it. Evelyn's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Very noble, cousin. We shall see if the shareholders share your sentiment. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking like punctuation marks. Maya felt every stare burn into her back. When they finally escaped to the courtyard outside, she pulled her hand away. You should not have done that, she said, her voice shaking. You just put your company at risk because of me. Adrian looked at her, his jaw tight. You think I care about that right now? You should, she said. This was supposed to be business, remember? A deal. He took a step closer. It stopped feeling like a deal the moment I realized I could lose you. The words hit her harder than she expected. Adrian, she whispered, do not say things you cannot mean. I mean every word, he said quietly. The rain began to fall again, soft but relentless. Maya looked away, her heart pounding. I did not ask for this, she said. I only wanted to save my mother's shop. And I only wanted to save myself, he admitted. Maybe we both failed. She turned toward him, tears blurring the city lights. Or maybe, she said, we both started to care too much. For a long moment they stood there in the rain, two people bound by a lie that had somehow become the only truth that mattered. But in the shadows of the ballroom windows, Evelyn watched, her phone already in her hand. The next move would not be theirs. Part 8. By morning the damage had already begun. The tabloids exploded with headlines about Adrian Hale's secretly bankrupt wife and sham marriage scandal. Reporters camped outside the tower entrance, shouting questions that cut like blades. Maya watched the chaos from the penthouse window, her reflection pale against the glass. It is my fault, she whispered. Evelyn warned you, and now everyone believes her. Adrian stood behind her, his phone ringing nonstop. Do not take the blame, he said firmly. She has been waiting for this. She wants control of the company. Exposing the marriage is her leverage. Then end it, Maya said, turning to face him. End the deal. Annul it. Tell them it was all a mistake. His eyes darkened. Is that what you want? It is what you need, she said softly. You will lose everything if you keep standing beside me. You think I care about money? He snapped, then caught himself. His tone softened. You have changed me, Maya. Before you, I measured success by numbers. Now I cannot breathe without wondering what you would think of me. Her eyes filled with tears. You cannot fix your life by destroying mine. I am not destroying it, he said. I am finally living it. But the choice was already made for them. That afternoon, Evelyn called an emergency board session, her voice triumphant over speakerphone. Given recent scandals, she declared, I move to suspend Adrian Hale as acting CEO until a full investigation can be conducted. The board murmured in uneasy agreement. Maya sat beside Adrian, every heartbeat echoing like a countdown. Evelyn continued, the trust transfer will be frozen until the company stabilizes, effective immediately. You cannot do that, Adrian said, standing. Watch me, Evelyn replied smoothly. You are reckless, cousin. This marriage, this charity, project it all ends today. Maya stood too, her hands trembling but her voice clear. No, it does not. The room turned toward her. You talk about stability, but what you mean is control. Adrian's mother founded the Hale Foundation to build bridges, not walls. If you destroy that, you destroy everything she stood for. Evelyn sneered. And who are you to lecture us? A florist with debts? Someone who knows what loss feels like, Maya said. You hide behind profit sheets and call it leadership, but leadership means standing for something even when it costs you. Adrian looked at her, pride softening the tension in his face. The room fell silent. Then one of the senior board members spoke. Mrs. Hale is right. The foundation has restored our public image. Perhaps we should reconsider. Evelyn's expression faltered, but she quickly regained composure. You are all fools if you think sentiment keeps this company alive, she hissed. Maybe not, Adrian said, but integrity does. He turned to Maya, his voice steady. You wanted to end the deal, so let us end it, but our way. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out the contract they had signed months ago. Without hesitation, he tore it in half, the paper ripping clean through the signatures. Gasps filled the room. The marriage was supposed to be a business transaction, he said, but I will not let it be used as a weapon. Maya's throat tightened as she met his gaze. What happens now? He smiled faintly. Now we stop pretending. The boardroom erupted in whispers, but Adrian and Maya no longer heard them. They walked out hand in hand, leaving Evelyn fuming behind them. For the first time, the deal that had begun as a lie ended with truth. But outside the glass doors, cameras were waiting, and the battle for what came next was only beginning. Part 9. The weeks that followed were chaos and clarity woven together. The media storm burned itself out as quickly as it rose, and the truth about Evelyn's manipulation began to surface. Her secret dealings with outside investors were exposed, and the board voted unanimously to remove her from her position. For the first time in years, the Hale Group felt lighter, freer, like a company with a soul again. Adrian declined to speak to the press. He poured his energy into rebuilding the foundation his mother had dreamed of, turning corporate towers into spaces for community projects and gardens across the city. And through it all, Maya was there, not as a contract wife but as a partner. The rooftop greenhouse, once a symbol of grief, now overflowed with color. Children and volunteers came every weekend to plant and learn, their laughter filling the air that had once been heavy with silence. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the glass ceiling, Adrian stood watching Maya arrange a bouquet for the foundation's reopening ceremony. Her hands moved with the same calm grace he had fallen in love with. "You never stop working," he said softly. She smiled without looking up. "Flowers do not bloom if you stop caring." "Neither do people," he replied. When she turned, he was holding something behind his back. "What are you hiding?" she asked, half smiling. He stepped closer, revealing a small velvet box. "A new contract," he said, voice low. "But this one has no expiration date." Maya froze as he opened the box to reveal a ring. Not large, not flashy, but elegant and simple, set with a single sapphire that mirrored the necklace she had worn on the night everything fell apart. "Adrian," she whispered, her eyes glistening. "You do not have to—" "I know," he interrupted gently. "That is why I want to." He took her hand, the same hand that had once signed a contract out of desperation, and placed the ring on her finger. "Marry me," he said. "For real this time, no deals, no lies, just us." Her breath caught. "What if we fail?" He smiled faintly. "Then we will build again, like you did with this garden." Tears blurred her vision, but she nodded, laughing through them. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. The volunteers nearby clapped and cheered as the couple stood surrounded by lavender and rosemary, the same plants that had witnessed the first cracks in their walls. Months later, the Hale Conservatory officially opened, a glass-roofed oasis dedicated to community and kindness. The sign above the entrance read, "The Art of Growing Back." Maya placed the old watering can her mother's on display in the center. It was chipped, imperfect, but beautiful. During the ceremony, Adrian spoke briefly, his voice calm and full. "My mother once said leadership means planting seeds you may never see bloom. Today, I finally understand what she meant. Because the best things in life grow when you care for them, not for profit, but for love." When the applause faded, he turned to Maya, his expression soft. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Hale?" She smiled, her hand finding his. "I already am." As the doors of the conservatory closed behind them, the light spilled through the glass like a promise, one that neither of them would ever have to sign again.